Hello and welcome back to the finals of the World Championship in Through the Ages. After Wanderlust got excluded from the finals and now actually also from the next year's World Championship, and Dipogi stepped back from the finals, we have now only two finalists remaining, A440 and kyshantry, who will be playing three two-player games. The first two of those will be rated with 5 points for the winner and the loser 2 points. The last one with the normal 4 points for the winner and 0 points for the loser. Yeah, those three two-player games will decide which player will be the new world champion. And after the two four-player games, A440 is clearly in the better position. kyshantry basically has to win all of those three games, or at least tie in one of them and win the other two. So it could be that in the two-player game that we are taking a look at today, the winner of the World Championship will already be decided. I don't know it. I haven't taken a look at the game yet. So, let's just find out together. Alright, here we are in the game. A440 is playing in the first position, kyshantry in the second position. Let's quickly take a look at the leaders and wonders. We have Hollywood, we have Bach, there's no Shakespeare, no Gaudi, there is Fleming, but no Marlene and Chaplin, so that's the situation for the culture-heavy gameplay. We have then also some lab leaders, actually a lot of them in H3, with Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, Bill Gates and Einstein. Also there's Pierre, but no internet, however for some science setup, the spaceflight and the Manhattan Project are in there. We have both Ocean Liner Service, Maria Theresa, there is also the Suez Canal, but no James Cook. We have Nobel, Napoleon, maybe for a bit of strength counterplay. Also Catherine as a military action leader. And Darwin can actually also be a very solid culture leader in a two-player game. Then in H1 we have Jan Žižka as a culture leader, Genghis Khan to help with the strength, Eleanor, Columbus, Isabella could be nice for a colonization game or as transitional leaders, at least Eleanor and Columbus. And then also there's Leonardo but no Gutenberg, there's Universitas but no Silk Road, Forbidden City but no St. Peter's Basilica, and we have Taj Mahal and the Machu Picchu. Acropolis and Pyramids are not in the row yet, so two interesting wonders that could come out of the deck. Also Hammurabi, Boudica, Confucius, so there's some juicy stuff actually from HA that is still luring in the deck, so let's see what that might have an impact on the decision of the players. A440's first pick seems relatively straightforward. I don't think there's a need to commit to Moses, so just taking Engineering Genius looks like the clearly best move. And then kyshantry will just go for the library. Could have maybe also taken two yellows or Moses in a yellow and then maybe gotten Rome Roads, but I think in two-player games I'm not that high in the Rome Roads. Of course, there could be Acropolis and Pyramids revealed, but Library is a perfectly solid wonder, and at least A440 has no wonder to take for in civil action. It isn't that bad though, because he has taken the Engineering Genius as the first civil action, so he can just take a leader, elect the leader, build a mine, increase population, and I guess that is also what he will be doing. Yes, no surprises there. He goes for Moses. Alex would have been also an option. Maybe especially if kyshantry should go for Boudica, but Boudica is available for an additional civil action anyway, and like this he lets Confucius stay on 3 civil actions, so going immediately into Confucius is not really an option for kyshantry. So let's see what he will be doing. He's just going for Alex. Joker can be a bit tricky in two-player games, maybe still fine. However, as you can see, there are actually two H1 leaders coming down the row, meaning kyshantry definitely can expect to replace Alex relatively quickly, and with that Alex could turn out to be a very solid pick, especially with Boudica and Confucius not being available yet. Then it's A440's turn, he builds the second lab, increases his population, takes the Rome Roads, builds a step, at the next turn he can finish the wonder, get out of consumption again, and also has one civil action left to pick a card, for example Jan Žižka or maybe the irrigation. kyshantry seeds, so doesn't use Alex yet, meaning he also won't replace him this turn already. The development of settlement is revealed. He will build a second lab, takes Isabella and the irrigation, wants to have that copy in hand, and is willing to delay electing Isabella in favor of seeding this turn and not using Alex. Then it's A440's turn. He seeds as well. The development of civil life is revealed. He can, with that, he will actually build a fourth mine here. So he could have had a relatively straightforward turn, maybe using it to increase his population, build the Rome Roads, and then maybe take Žižka or something. He is actually using the development of civil life to build an additional mine, which is certainly something that can work quite well with Moses. However, that means he can't spend his civil actions that nicely in the Rome roads. He might just maybe build 2 steps and increase his population, so then he also can spend his civil actions nicely. Would have then already committed to the mine, but at least very cheaply with the development of civil life. So he will increase his population, and it's just building 2 steps, so similarly civil action efficient, but of course the commitment to the 4th mine, together with the Rome roads, let's see how that will work out. But he has Moses for some additional population and the additional yellow token from the Rome roads, and maybe needs less units in the military with Jan Žižka if he just wants to stay competitive and doesn't want to go for a strength push. Kyshantry takes that copy of Code of Laws, an extremely important technology in 2-player games, and then also picks a copy of Knights, doesn't want to go for the alchemy here, and at the next turn, he copied actually a 440 here and also used the development of civil life to build an additional mine. So interesting stuff, but I mean, 4th mine can sometimes be worth it. Kyshantry also has the additional yellow token from Alex. He's not going into consumption, can maybe finish the library at the next turn, develop the Code of Laws. So let's see how the double 4 bronze mine game will be going. Now it's A440's turn. He seeds and he doesn't seed, he skips politics, finishes the Rome roads, takes the alchemy, goes for an upgrade, so he's just going for some straightforward economical upgrades here. Is actually skipping the irrigation here, but there's selective breeding and ocean liner service to maybe get some food production going later on. Kyshantry finishes the library, also finishes his wonder, has now 1 civil action left. I guess he will develop the Code of Laws, or does he want to save up the science? No, he will develop the Code of Laws, takes the reserves, and with that also still doesn't go into consumption. However, reserves maybe not the most efficient yellow card, still with not going into consumption it could be worth it. A440 seeds, the development of science is revealed. He will go for another alchemy upgrade, has now some really strong science production, actually both copies of iron coming down the row, and he will just build more stuff. After having gone for a 4th bronze mine, he will now build another agriculture, but of course with Jan Žižka it will enable him an additional fighting band tactic. Will be interesting to see if he will actually already elect him, or if he wants to increase his population one more time with Moses. And I mean, it will produce some additional food immediately, so definitely an interesting setup, but I think the farm definitely makes sense with Jan Žižka. He then takes the drama with Bach in the game as maybe the only very powerful culture leader that can be an important technology to have. Now it's Kyshantry's turn, he goes for the iron. He could just go for 2 upgrades, and it looks like that's also what he is doing. Is already at 7 resource production now, and I mean, with the additional blue tokens from Isabella, you can do something like this. He's still not going into consumption. He is basically using Alex's additional token like he would have Moses. Just also every turn accumulating additional food, and at the next turn he will have to spend a lot of civil actions maybe to get out of corruption and to finally spend all of the food, but thanks to that yellow token he has now a lot of additional food lying around. Now it's A440's turn. He seeds, the development of agriculture is revealed, so even more food for Kyshantry, 11 food. He almost could build a Red Cross right now. And the event deck is flipped now with A440 having seeded the majority of the events, although Kyshantry also has 1 event in there. Let's see if A440 also will just go for an iron upgrade, could just go for an upgrade and then increase his population to get out of corruption. He will increase his population, but he actually increases his population again. Will this turn go for Jan Žižka with increasing his population additional time, has gotten some additional value out of Moses, takes the elm growth and a breakthrough. So it happens again, what we have already seen from A440 in the first game of the finals. He is just skipping the iron, or I guess in that game he just skipped the coal. Interesting choice, but I mean he has the 4th mine. But there's only 1 copy of coal, and it certainly can be a disadvantage at some point to be on low resource production. So, an interesting choice, just grabbing those yellows, not bothering going into iron that late. Then it's Kyshantry's turn. He will increase his population 1 time, 2 times. Upgrades the mine, has now 9 resource production, which is quite a lot, and then takes the frugality to be able to increase his population even more times. He doesn't take any card from a non-discard spot, meaning the age won't end yet. A440 seeds, The historic territory is revealed. Kyshantry, of course, has more than enough resources to use Isabella's ability, and there is a Suez Canal in there, so he wins that colony, sends the colonization card away, and pays 1 resource with Isabella. A440 goes for knights. He has the fighting man tactic for now, but of course if he has the medieval army tactic, he could get quite threatening very quickly. So let's see if he will develop those immediately. He indeed will. Builds one, builds another one, has the phalanx tactic that of course might, or that works even better in the situation with him having 3 farms and a warrior. So he is now out of the sudden at 11 strength. Kyshantry only has 2 military actions and very likely might now be in danger of an aggression. Then A440 goes for the bread and circuses. There's Pierre in the game, and he develops it already, meaning at the next turn he can maybe build one, frees up a worker, can go for another military unit, and might continue his strength push then. H2 starts, or actually he needs it to fix his uprising, of course, I forgot that. The H still didn't end it yet, so he needs that to fix his happy faces. There's actually a very early constitutional monarchy in a row. Let's see if Kyshantry will deny that, because if not, then A440 might get a very big boost to a civil and military action, so maybe Kyshantry has to deny it, but it might, yeah, he might also have some other things that would be better for himself, even though of course he also still needs a government form. He will go for knights, builds one, builds another one, increases his population, and he takes the common. I think he kinda has to do it. With him going for 2 knights, it looks like he might have a heavy cavalry tactic in hand, which means that this turn he is still vulnerable to an aggression, but at the next turn he then might be able to build another knight, reveal the heavy cavalry tactic, and be somewhat safe. But let's see if A440 has an aggression available and can punish Kyshantry. And actually it seems that he doesn't, or here's something important to see it. Raiders are revealed. Kyshantry will lose a little bit, but I guess it doesn't hurt him that much losing 2 resources maybe when he has that many resource productions, or maybe not the worst event for him. There's actually an early Bach in the row. Let's see if A440 is willing to grab him for expensive. Kyshantry doesn't have any theater technologies now, so but on the other hand, I mean, he could also go for Darwin, maybe then for Pierre later on, but playing Bach can sometimes be a bit easier, however, I expect, as it would cause corruption for him, and also with maybe knowing that A440 tends a little bit towards a more military-heavy playstyle. I don't have a lot of knowledge about his 2-player playstyle, but I would expect that he doesn't take Bach here. He goes for another arena instead, goes up to 13 strength, takes the Forbidden City, but he's missing 1 resource to finish this at the next turn. Could be a sign, though, that maybe there could be an event that helps him, maybe a strength event, or also knowledge of the ancients potentially. Kyshantry, and I guess that's also a reason why maybe taking Bach is not that necessary. Kyshantry, yeah, some additional science really helps him with his development of his civilization, so while Bach of course has some very big potential for later on, he could be in real danger of maybe just not being able to set up enough stuff to be threatening enough for the military, and so the additional science could help him a lot here, and so yeah, with that another reason of not going for Bach. With having corruption, that would have been way too expensive, I think. Kyshantry will now go for Nobel, increases his population 2 times, that will get him out of corruption, builds a knight, builds another light, so interestingly, he didn't reveal a tactic here. He didn't need the additional knight to get out of corruption, so it could be that he actually doesn't have a heavy cavalry tactic, or maybe he plans on revealing that at the next turn, but I think revealing it now and not going for the additional knight might have been better if he would have the tactic, so it could be that he is playing without tactic for now, which of course could be a bit tricky potentially. But now he only needs 1 defense card to defend himself. A440 seats, the call to arms is revealed. That could be a bit annoying for Kyshantry, because one thing that might be very reasonable for him to do at his next turn would be to just go for revolution. Maybe with the science production that he's having right now, it is fine to just not go for a revolution, but I think it could have been an interesting option for him that is now denied, especially also with getting more military actions going, maybe being more competitive in strength, because who knows, A440 could potentially build even more strength this turn. And indeed, he's going for an additional warrior, going up to 14 strength, builds a step of the Forbidden City, takes Bach in hand now, anticipated it rightly that he has another chance to take him, and now takes the breakthrough and has now an easy way to maybe set up some big culture production, but kyshantry of course still has that very big resource production ongoing. He sees the cultural influence is revealed. For the next event deck we can see that again A440 has seeded a majority of events. And kyshantry has only 3 civil actions, takes the team sports, builds one going up to 12 strength, and not revealing a tactic, meaning it seems like he doesn't have a heavy cavalry tactic available. A440 seeds, the Dark Ages are revealed. Ooh. And that's of course an event that hurts A440 quite a lot. Losing 10 science is quite a lot. Kyshantry also loses 3. And is just enough to do a revolution if he plans on doing that. Maybe he also wants to go for the Suez Canal if he has drawn a good colony or needs some of those military techs. A440 finishes the Forbidden City. Let's see if he is willing to pick the Selective Breeding or the Rifleman, maybe for 2 civil actions. Both of those cards seem like they could be very relevant for him. Let's see if he will take one of those 2. And he's picking the Selective Breeding. Now, I think having more population income is very important for him, especially if he plans on going for some cheap dramas with Bach. Kyshantry does a revolution now, delayed it by 1 turn, but can do it now, is now on a very nice amount of civil and military actions. A440 seeds. And the Crusades are revealed, so A440 having, I think, a bit of a culture lead right now. Yes, 12 to 26. He goes for Bach this turn, so probably plans on building a drama already. Otherwise, I think it would have been better to keep Jan Žižka. Unless, of course, he needs the hand space. That, of course, could also be a reason to go for Bach. But as you can see, he will develop the drama. Might even just upgrade a Bread and Circuses to drama, potentially, as he doesn't need the happy faces, especially with having the Forbidden City. Can maybe even upgrade another one, potentially. Destroys the farm that he had built earlier. Will he build another drama, or does he want to have more military? I could imagine that he wants to take the strategy here, with him only having Republic as a government from age 2 left. But that, of course, he couldn't take if he goes for another drama now. He does go for another drama, using the urban growth, being at 8 culture production, takes the engineering genius. Let's see if he might get punished by the military, because kyshantry will now be able to take the strategy, maybe even strategy and revolutionary idea. And he is still not on any tactic, meaning as soon as he maybe gets a bit lucky and draws hussars or mobile artillery, things could still look quite dangerous relatively quickly to A440, so I'm not sure about passing on the strategy here. It feels a bit greedy for me, especially with having that much science and with probably going towards Republic. There's no Gandhi to hide behind, so yeah, I think I'm not sure about this decision. Kyshantry seeds and opens the reds. Not a lot of food is lost. Kyshantry this turn has missed out on the Selective Breeding, will start going for some irrigation upgrades, takes the wave, the cannons, the efficient upgrade and the strategy. But is missing 1 science to go for the strategy already the next turn. He has corruption, so while he has some really strong production, I do think he had also already corruption earlier, so didn't find the best way to invest those resources yet, but still has a lot of them saved up. Maybe can go even for something like the Kremlin at the next turn. A440 goes for the Republic, wants to make sure they have more civil actions. Takes the revolutionary idea, the efficient upgrade, goes for the Selective Breeding for 1 upgrade, and then upgrades another Bread and Circuses to dramas. An interesting situation. I actually also had something similar recently, but normally you upgrade maybe your labs, your temples to dramas, so that you upgrade your Bread and Circuses 2 times to dramas with Bach is certainly something unique, so I like it. And then that's his turn. Let's see if one of the players will go for the Ocean Liner service. A440 still has that Engineering Genius in hand, which, despite being on Bronze Mines, might enable him to think about that option. Kyshantry seeds. Opens the popularization of science. Both players gain the same amount of culture out of that event. And then he goes for the architecture, develops it, takes the ocean liner, can finish it with the engineering genius one, will start getting more population, and that also might be very helpful for him for a strength push. And maybe that's also something that he kinda needs to aim towards, because A440 is running away and is pressuring kyshantry into position where maybe he just has to try something with the military, even though with his big production maybe he can still just set up for a big Hollywood with flaming. If you have seen my last game that I showed in this channel from myself from the Intermezzo Championship season, you maybe remember how much potential that has on catching up some culture deficits. So that could of course still be an option. Nonetheless, he will get a lot of population, and A440 doesn't seem too well equipped at the moment to really be competitive in high strength numbers, but he might have that big of a culture lead that maybe kyshantry might need more than one war, even though depending on if he gets a fitting tactic, he could also just go for one very big war. And it seems like he has a tactic that might give him some potential, the mobile artillery. As soon as he goes for cannons, he will gain a lot of strength. Also now, just at the time H3 starts, so I think we can maybe take a look at the overview. And yeah, A440 is running away with the culture now. Even the Rome roads switch to culture reduction. And he has a lot of civil actions, can maybe end the game relatively quickly. But I think he is still quite vulnerable. I mean, maybe he will go into coal now, but I'm not sure if I would do it. I think it's probably too late. He can of course go now for another food upgrade, still get some population, can at some point copy the mobile artillery tactic. The timing of military theory, or maybe also something like fundamentalism, might be of very big importance for him. So I do think he has some ways to defend himself somewhat reasonably, but kyshantry has now the ocean liner, has tons of resources to work with, can easily build 3 or 4 cannons quickly. He's a bit low on science, so ideally, of course, he wants to build some military while still drawing some cards, because he really needs a war, and A440 might be able, as said, to end the game relatively quickly. So I think maximizing his amount of draws could be of very big importance to kyshantry. But he doesn't really have enough science to quickly go for both cannons and strategy, which I think would be very strong for him. So let's see if he manages to get the necessary draws going. I guess can maybe build 1 cannon per turn for the next 2 turns and then go for strategy or something. So I think a lot in this game will depend or resolve around whether kyshantry can maybe punish A440 in the military. As said, maybe kyshantry will also try to go for a big Hollywood setup or something, but I think he probably wants to try something with the military. However, A440 certainly is not perfectly equipped. I do think he will be able to pull off a reasonable amount of strength, but will have some difficulties. So I will at this position guess kyshantry as the winner, but it will heavily depend on what cards he draws and maybe if A440 has quick access to the military theory or something. So let's see how that will be going. A440 this turn takes the breakthrough. The cannons, interestingly, is willing to take them for 3 civil actions here, even though they can't be denied, but maybe with this row with almost no yellow cards, he actually doesn't have that many alternatives to spend his civil actions nicely, and maybe he even wants to invest into them already to use his military actions effectively, because when you are that low on military actions, it can be important to just use them every turn, which is of course awkward because then you don't draw any cards, but still you might need them to build up a strong enough military. So maybe he will just disband a warrior now and build a cannon or something. He goes for 1 upgrade and doesn't build a cannon for now. Maybe there could also be arms industry coming, or he just wanted to spend his civil actions on things that he will need to do anyway to have more free civil actions at a following turn. Now it's kyshantry's turn. He seeds, opens the pestilence, will develop the cannons, increases his population 1 time normally, 1 time with the ocean liner service, builds 1 cannon. I'm interested to see whether he is willing to sacrifice some draws here. Guess it also depends a bit on whether he has aggressions from H2, but then again, if he also goes for aggressions, in addition to building up some military, he gets even less draws, so even less chance to get an H3 war. If he has a spy though, maybe it could be worth it to build up a lot of military now, go for that spy, and then develop the strategy already at the next turn. Oh, actually, there's the revolutionary idea coming, so with that the strategy can be developed 1 turn early, and I think that's a card that kyshantry maybe really needs to take here. He builds another cannon, so is at least willing to miss out on one draw. Takes the revolutionary idea and the multimedia, maybe wants to keep some peaceful options here. Could be one part of the puzzle piece to get Fleming with a very big Hollywood going. And yeah, but at the next turn with the revolutionary idea, he can develop the strategies already. 28 strength, so let's see if we can deploy an aggression or war the next turn. Again, lost 2 resource on corruption. A440 loses, I think, even a drama to the pestilence, so that certainly hit him quite heavily, but maybe he just needs more military very urgently and was not willing to give up on one of those bronze mines or on his science production. Certainly a price to pay losing one of those. He interestingly has already an H3 tactic that he can make use of, but only in the outdated form. Let's see what he will do. He could take the Manhattan Project, which he can somewhat nicely build with the Engineering Genius. Could make sure to have the first copy of Air Forces. The second one could be late. Let's see if he will go for one of those things. Goes for the Air Forces. Doesn't go for the Manhattan Project yet. Maybe that's just a bit expensive, but he can build an Air Force at the next turn and then has a somewhat reasonable amount of strength. Oh, and Kyshantry got a bit lucky here, has out of the 2 draws already a Warwick culture drawn, and of course that could make it that the game goes a bit in his favor, and he can just develop the strategy, go for 2 more cannons. Maybe he will even go for the Manhattan Project. It's of course an option as well, and then that war could already be quite big, but of course he might again be sacrificing some draws. He goes for the Manhattan Project, builds that wonder, plays the revolutionary idea, develops the strategy. Actually, he's not really sacrificing that many draws, only 1. So for that, it certainly might be worth it. Goes up to 52 strength, takes the professional spots. Oh, and actually A440 resigns already. I mean, after that war, Kyshantry might already be in a culture lead, maybe even, and then A440 will just be vulnerable, so maybe I would have tried it one more turn, but also I didn't take a close look, of course, at the turn, and I do think there's almost no hope left, and Kyshantry with the multimedia in hand can also easily transition maybe into something more peaceful, so no, Kyshantry definitely got a bit lucky with this early H3 draw. Nonetheless, I think A440 played it a bit greedy at the turn. I think he kind of needed to grab that strategy if he is going for such a greedy setup. I think he really needed a strategy here and needed Kyshantry to not have it. Things might have still gotten difficult, maybe the result would be very similar, but I think that was just a bit too greedy. The Engineering Genius that he took at this turn just still is sitting in his hand, so that potentially could be seen as one of the game deciding misplays, potentially. Of course, sometimes you will get away with that, especially in a 2-player game, but still the strategy, I think, seemed too important in that situation, and Kyshantry got a bit lucky with that early H3 draw, but he, I think, would have been able to keep his military advantage over some turns, so he might have had more chances to draw and then to develop to declare a war. There is no Gandhi in the game, so I think, no, at the end, he's the one able to win that, meaning it's not decided yet. Kyshantry still has the chance to maybe make a nice win streak against A440 in the 2-player games, so we then potentially might see in the next game if A440 is able to win the World Championship, or if Kyshantry makes it very exciting and it comes down to the last 3-player game. And with that, we are at the end of the game. I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. A little bit of an abrupt ending. I expected the game to move a little bit forward, a little bit more forward, but then the war was drawn very quickly, and A440 didn't saw any out for him. Alright, but anyway, we are at the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time, and see you in the next video.